Good morning, folks. Thank you for being here. I want to introduce who's in front of you. So let me start with the two most important people. Forgive me to the rest of us and you. But to my left, second, I'm going to go to the end of the table. My co-counsel, Liana Hatchett, Venn Johnson Law. Next to her is, of course, Dorcas Lyoya, Patrick's mother. Israel Suku is our incredible interpreter. And then we have Peter Lyoya next to me. Commissioner Robert Womack, Kent County Commissioner, and Chris Desmond, Venn Johnson Law Chief Appellate Attorney. As you all know, last week, Prosecutor Chris Becker made his announcement that he was choosing not to retry Schurr. And as we all know, it was late in the week when he made that decision, or at least when he shared that decision. He did it on a weekend that was a Memorial Day weekend that many of us are enjoying. And I thought it was advisable, since that came as such a shock to the family, to give them some time and space before they were making public comment. I would hope that you all could understand that. So first and foremost, let me say on behalf of the family, I want to thank Prosecutor Chris Becker for doing something that 98 to 99% of all prosecutors across the country would never have done. It is not easy for somebody in his position to issue charges. We see the video, we know the evidence. We have experts already lined up in the civil case, so I know the ins and outs of what you all saw in court. I've known that, and we've known that since less than a week after Patrick was murdered. And some of you saw the criminal proceedings, others may not. But the fact of the matter is, Chris Becker, in 99.99% of all cases, relies on police officers to bring his cases to him, to prosecute, and they are his lead witnesses. I'm sure it was not lost on many of us that there was an officer in charge at his table from the Michigan State Police, an officer in charge who actually concluded a number of very important key facts contrary to what you will be hearing from our experts. So to say that it was a difficult case for him from the beginning would be an understatement. You need me on this? All right. You need me to hold that, or I can leave it there? Thank you, sir. So irrespective of that, Chris Becker not only made the decision to charge, because he clearly felt so strongly, as we do still today, about the evidence, but he did so in the face of some investigation that would be what you would call, from his perspective, difficult. So to think about the pressure of a county prosecutor who relies on the police and often considers themselves to be kind of one of that team, right, is not easy. So not only did he bring the charges, folks, but he did the case himself. And I will just tell you, you think about the biggest of big cases and ask yourself the last time a lead prosecutor. So Karen McDonald did the Oxford cases. I give her a shout out to that. I always have. I've done it privately with her and to her, and I will tell her publicly again. That took a lot of guts. Chris Becker did. And I'm telling you, in these other major prosecutions, the lead prosecutor almost never does the case. Chris Becker did. So again, we appreciate what he did. I say that as a lawyer because next I have to put on the hat of who I represent, my clients. And I am a father. I'm very blessed in that regard. And to think about what has got to be to us so clear based on the evidence that Schurr absolutely committed homicide. He killed Peter Lyoya unnecessarily when he put a bullet in the back of his head when he didn't have to save his own life. Did not have to. Could have used other force that was absolutely available to him. And in a deadly force situation, the federal law, state law is identical in criminal and civil. An officer is not allowed to use deadly force if lesser force is available to him or her. And it was. And there was testimony about that at trial, and there will be in this civil trial. So to us, it's clear evidence. And on behalf of my clients, obviously, they will share with you individually their thoughts. But yes, they're crushed. This is yet another blow to the family where criminal law justice has failed them. So they feel very strongly about that. And as much as I hope you all keep my comments about giving Chris Becker credit, I hope you keep that all in context. So I'm not just being critical of him. I understand his decision. I don't like it. And if I were a prosecutor, what would I do? Well, in a weird way, I am a prosecutor because I have to prove my case, and I go first too, and we will. So I would have loved to have the chance at retrying that case. I will ask you that. Had I been asked to be a special prosecutor, I would have said yes, and I'd have done it for nothing. This is about justice, and what we're seeing in the United States, what we're seeing in the state of Michigan, is an absolute erosion of our civil rights. You're going to be hearing about next week about another decision in a very high-profile case that many of us at this table are involved in, of Samuel Sterling, how those criminal charges were dismissed yesterday. We will talk about that publicly next week. You're now seeing in this case that at least charges were brought, but now the prosecutor, because of the mistrial, the first time has elected, which is his prerogative, not to do it again. So what you're seeing is, although charges were initially brought, they're not sticking, as they say in that side of the law, and they're not moving forward to justice. And what you're seeing are police officers who will absolutely never be found to be guilty and will never serve a single day in jail, when anybody else that commits that crime other than a police officer would be in jail for the rest of their life. So a very, very tough pill for this family to swallow. Last comment I'll make before turning it over to our clients. Again, this is prosecutorial discretion, meaning it was his call. So I am not being critical of Chris Becker, that I may have done something different. I understand why he did what he did. So again, I want to start or finish where I started, and that is I thank him and his team. The family was there every single day in that criminal trial. Someone from Venn Johnson Law, even though we're not criminal lawyers, was there every single day in that courtroom along with our clients. We saw the evidence. We know what the jury makeup was. And I hope that, let's talk about that for 1 second. You had 12 jurors in Grand Rapids with 2 alternates, meaning 14 people. There were no African Americans. There were no anyone else of color other than 3 Hispanics, and 2 of them were dismissed at the alternate stage, meaning they were number 13 and 14, which, by the way, no one is saying that's why they were there. If you know the system, it's random. We get that. That's how it worked out. You had 1 person of color on that jury and no one of African-American descent. One. Not when they got done. But Commissioner, you can talk about that in a minute. But in any event, it's disturbing when you see that somebody who has been murdered and goes to court and has their case, if you will, kind of just thrown out of court. And again, that is part of the system. It is not, from the family's perspective, a part of the system that they appreciate. Commissioner, I want you to correct me because I saw that jury. Tell me where I'm wrong.
It was reported by one of the news channels that one of the jurors said that the one African-American juror who was of mixed race descent was one of the holdouts and one of the strongest holdouts on the jury. And I was and they said the defense also said that, which I was kind of shocked that the defense would be commenting on the juror, because her decision is her own decision. And for them to publicly call her out, who could easily be identified as a mixed race African-American on there, and take it from secondhand from another juror and put out what her decision was. I thought that was kind of erroneous on the part of the defense.
Well, I'm going to apologize because I believe that she was Hispanic, but but when you say holdout, Commissioner, you're talking about that she was in favor of finding the officer guilty.
Yes.
And apparently the criminal defense, meaning the criminal defense lawyers, called her out.
A juror did, and the news said that the defense collaborated it, and she began to get hassled on social media with people calling her racist for her decision.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I apologize. Well, go ahead. While we have disco lights? Okay, sorry about that. We're having a little lighting issue, so forgive us, but we're not in the middle of a disco. Okay, let me turn it over then for a minute to Dorcas. Let's start with you first, please. Would you kindly share with the folks your feelings, your reaction to Prosecutor Becker's decision not to retry Schurr?
Okay, anasema uambie batu gisu solisikia decision yenye nani Becker alisema kama hataendelesha na hii process ya kumpeleka Schurr ku justice. Ulisikia emosio zako zilikuwaje?
Mimi nilisikia mbaya sana, zaidi ya sana.
I really felt bad. I was in a bad shape.
Mimi nilifikiria tulianza naye na kila kitu kilikuwa kinaendeka mzuri. Kwa dakika ya mwisho yenye tulikuwa tunatumainia kama labda tutarudilia vitu vitakuwa vizuri, afu yanafika na kuja kukatate.
Because we started with him good. I thought that since we started with him and everything was moving smoothly, everything was moving good. And we knew that, I knew that he can retrial this case. But at the end, I just heard the decision. He said that he's not going to proceed with the retrial anymore. That was so shocking to me.
Yani nilisikia vibaya sana kabisa, na nikafika nasikia kama kuvunjika moyo.
I really felt bad. It was really bad for me, emotional, mentally, and I had a broken heart. My heart was really broken because I was so much in pain.
Juu mimi nilikuwa najua hata kama hii ya kwanza imeshindikana, lakini ya pili itawezekana.
Yeah, because I was hoping since the first one we didn't get the right justice that we were looking for, maybe the second trial, when we tried the second time, there was a strong possibility we could be getting the justice that we're looking for. But his decision really broke me down, and my heart is still bleeding right now.
Sijui nini ndo aliona sana, wala yenyewe aliona kama haiwezi kawezekana turu ya pili, mpaka akaamua kukamata ya maamuzi ya kusema kama yeye anaviacha.
I don't know what he saw or what he went through to realize that he cannot retrial this case for the second time, for him to just drop the case and say, you know what, I'm not going to retrial it again. I don't know what really happened to him or what was going on in his mind.
Kwa hiyo mimi kama mimi sijarizika na hii kesi ya mtoto wangu kuishia hapa. Mimi nataka hii kesi mpaka ifike tu mwisho kabisa, juu siwezi nikarizika mtoto wangu yuko naozea mkaburi, afu na mwenye alimuua yeye iko na enjoy familia yake.
For me, I'm not happy, and I will never be happy until when we find justice for Patrick. And to see that the murderer who killed my son, and my son right now is in his tomb, and the murderer is still free and enjoying with his family, that is really painful to me. It's broken. My heart is broken, and I will never find peace and happiness until when the justice has been given to my son, until when this criminal go to justice and they find him guilty.
Thank you, Mama. Peter, your turn.
Peter.
If you would please share with the folks what it feels like to you to hear the decision the election that Prosecutor Becker made in not retrying this case, please.
Okay. Chenye naweza ongea, niko na mingi ya kuongea sana kuhusu kifo cha Patrick na gisi hii kesi gisi imeanza na gisi imefika mwisho kwa gisi Becker amesimamisha.
What can I say? I have a lot what I can say about the death of Patrick and where we have come to the end where just Becker made the decision. He said that I'm not going to retry it anymore.
Na tangu mwanzo mimi niliona nikiwazi tangu Patrick alikufa, Becker ndo alisimamia kesi kama atatusaidia. Lakini
okay, since the beginning, when Patrick was dead, was killed, Becker took the decision. He said, I am the one who's going to be tried in this case. But today,
lakini tangu hapo mwanzo mimi niliona shaka na nikaona kama hii kitu labda hakitaenda salama.
But from the beginning, I had a doubt, and I realized, I said, maybe this thing is not going to happen good. I was doubting.
Kwa kumuchaji kwanza Schurr, nilikamata muda mrefu, ilifika kama saa 7 kwa saa 8 ndo alikuwa kuamua kama Schurr wanamchaji second degree murder.
Just even to charge Schurr, it took a long time. It come around 1:30, 2 o'clock for him to make the decision that Schurr has been charged for second degree murder.
Kwa kweli tulifurahi na ile second degree murder, lakini pale ndo nilipata wasiwasi ya kusema mtu aisha kuua kuliko amuchaji first degree murder anamchaji second degree murder, ilikuwa kama piège.
And that's when I started becoming doubtful about what was going on, because my son was already killed, he was dead, and in order for him to be charged first degree murder, they charged him a second degree. That's when I realized that it was kind of a trap between.
Ya pale niliona kama ni mtego, kwani alijua kama hii second degree murder yeye anaelewa, alijua kama ile yote ametayarisha, kutakuwa processes ya jury na vingine vile, akajua kwenye kesi itasimamia, alikuwa anajua.
Okay, and when he charged him for second degree, that's when I saw a trap, because him as a prosecutor, he knew exactly what was going on, and he knew that we'll go through trial, we'll go through jury, so he knew exactly how the case will move along.
Kesi iliendelea kwa miaka 3 hii nikiwazi Patrick amekufa.
We have been 3 years now, ever since when Patrick passed away, Patrick was killed.
Walienda wanarefusha.
They took it long, they extended it.
Ile yote niliona kama ni piège walikuwa wanatega.
And all of that, to me, in my mind, was kind of a trap, that they were setting a trap.
Sasa na hii kesi walijikamatia kama yao prive kivyao, ni ya kwao.
And then this case looked like it was a private case. They took it in their own hand. It was like it belonged to them.
Sasa tulianza vile nilikuwa na waza, vimeonekana maproof zote za kumuua Patrick zilionekana, gisi walimuforce kwa kumuua vilionekana, mavideo zote zilionekana, lakini mwisho tunafika kwa ile kuchagua jiri yote ilikuwa ya watu weupe, hakuna hata mweusi alikuwa ndani, na mwenye alikuwa anafanana kama mweusi wamemtoa.
And then from the beginning, we look how all the proof were there that Patrick was killed. They forced him, they killed my son. And then we proceeded to the next step. When it came to the jury selection, everybody saw how my son was killed. And then when we went to the jury selection, you can look at the jury, everybody was white. I mean, there was no color inside, there was nothing, but you can tell that is a white jury.
Tulianza kesi pale, lakini matokeo yake kwa mwanzo tu walianza kusema waache hii kesi, waritrayo. Walianza hiyo kabla jiri hayaamua.
From the beginning, when we started this case, the defense was already saying that we need to retrial this before even the jury took place, even the jury sit down and to start hearing all the evidence. They were just saying that let's retrial this or let's drop this case off.
Jaji alikuwa anakataa, alikuwa anasema hajui Schurr, lakini wao ule lawyer wa ngambo ya Schurr anasema basi tu retryo. Ile nikafika naona kama kuna giza kwa ile kesi.
And the judge really was refusing because she said that we need to go to get the justice. We need to hear from the jury, but the defense lawyer was keep pushing it, that we have to retry this. And that when my mind started going, I say, there must be a trap here. There's something that is not going right here.
Ndio maana nilisema kama kulikuwa piege. Mimi niliona zamani, nikasikia kweli nguvu zimenikatika. Nikaona kama sisi weusi wa ngozi.
And that's when I realized that there was a trap. And I came to realize that I had no strength anymore. And now I'm talking about, I realized that we black in this country, we are not important to the justice. We are not important to the justice.
Jiri ya watu 14 wameamua kutosha tena 2 yenye ilikuwa sawa, yenye inataka kukamata decision mzuri kwa ngambo yetu ilionekana.
It was 14 people in the jury, and they took 2 people off that who could have make a balance on our side, on our behalf, but they were taken and we could see it.
Wengine wote wamebakia, wote walikuwa ni watu weupe, hakuna hata mtu wa rangi ingine. Sasa pale ndo niliona hapa kutakuwa ushindi kwa ngambo yangu.
And everybody else that was left in the jury, all of them, most of them, they were white. And that's when I started getting that. I say, you know what? It's hard for me to get justice, clear justice for my son here, because the jury was purely white.
Kwa kweli nimeumia sana mroho, familia yote, hata wenyewe walikuwa wanatusupport wote wamoja wamevunjika moyo. Mpaka kwa hivi mimi nilifika naona kama decision itatoka ya mwisho pale itakuwa mbaya kwa ngambo yetu.
And then right now my heart is broken. All the supporter, their heart is broken. All the family that was standing with us, their heart is broken. I'm bleeding, I'm crying inside. And I look around, I say, you know, from that moment, I knew that most of the decision that will be taken, it will go against us.
Thank you.
Lakini sijachoka nitaendelea na kupigana juu ya justice, juu ya Patrick, ya kifo cha Patrick.
But I'm not tired. I will keep fighting for the justice of my son until when we get the justice, and until we bring that criminal to justice and we get the justice, Patrick get the justice that he deserves. I will fight him to the end.
Thank you, Peter.
Na kwa mwisho,
last comment.
Yes,
thank you.
Nataka kumalizia. Kwa mwisho nitawaelezea, hata kama wataniima justice, ule mwenye shua amemuua Patrick, ajue kama atatembea mpaka mwisho wa maisha yake na damu ya Patrick kwenye kichwa chake.
The last word I want to say is this. Even though even though they don't give me the justice of my son, but I want this murderer to know all the rest of his life, the blood of my son will be hanging on his head. It will walk all the rest of his life with the blood of Patrick on his head. Thank you.
Commissioner Womack, obviously you were incredibly involved on the ground from the initial horrible events of Patrick's death. You want to share your reactions?
Just a short reaction. Very thankful to Ving Johnson Law Services. Ben Crump and Ving Johnson are our last chance for justice in our community, where we have had 4 related officer deaths of civilians, and none of them are seeing any justice for the families. 3 of them won't even be going to court. 1 has went to court and has been a mistrial. I'd also like to add that when it came down to the jury pick, with me being an elected official, I watched the jury pick and I understood not only did race play a part, but also demographics played a part. There were many people that are from the inner city of Grand Rapids, or Caucasians that may be from urban areas and have a different view of how police sometimes act. And it seemed like a lot of jurors were selected that were from outside the urban areas, and a lot of the comments they made were like, when the police tell you to do something, you need to do it. So I was kind of surprised that they were on the jury. I was also surprised that someone who said she was in a relationship with a police officer, but he wasn't a Grand Rapids police officer, she was allowed on the jury. And we understand that there's a fraternal order with the police, and those it's not a big difference if you're in a suburb and you're part of the police department, there's a brotherhood there. And for some reason, that brotherhood does have to exist, but it's not fair to be on the trial. But once again, just want to thank Van Johnson for all the work he's doing, because when I talk to the family, there's a lot of hope that is still left, as hurt as they are, knowing that we do have Van Johnson, that he calls, he makes sure the family doing good. He's going beyond even being a lawyer, and that support is needed. I've been also asking that when police officers come to say there's been an officer shooting, that maybe some of the state or the county can start doing some funding for some therapists to be able to talk to those families during the first 24, 48 hours. Because besides Van Johnson and some of the people who have embraced this family, there's been no therapy to help with this healing. And it's a lot different when it's a police officer, because you begin to get bashed by people on social media or wherever you go, who call themselves supporters of police. But I would think if you're supporting law enforcement, you would carry yourself a lot better. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate it. My co-counsel, Yana Hatchett, is obviously working with me hand in hand on the civil case. Yana, can you please give us just a quick update of exactly where we are in the civil case?
As of right now, we are preparing to attend a Rule 16 scheduling conference in the trial court before Judge Maloney in the U.S. District Court, Western Division. And so that'll really be one of the first court date we have in the civil case, because we have been in motion and appellate practice for the last 3 years. So that is when things will begin. We'll have new dates, and really our process of discovery, taking depositions and all the things that come with civil litigation will start after that point moving forward.
So Judge Maloney, as you all probably know, United States District Court Judge, downtown Kalamazoo. That is where this civil case will be tried. This trial will likely not even begin for another 2 to 2.5 years. Why? Well, think about this. It's been over 3 years and we've not taken a deposition. That happens in no other kind of case but this kind of a case. When you sue somebody that is an agent of the government, but especially a police officer, they file motions right after they get the lawsuit, which is what they did. And then when they lose, like they did in front of Judge Maloney, they will go up to the United States Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, which they did. We won there as well. Sixth Circuit said go back, and Chris Desmond handled that, and he's going to address that in a minute. And then we go back before Judge Maloney and start doing the trial work. But the fact that there was this criminal trial going on, obviously, although there was no formal order entered saying that we couldn't do anything, we were not allowed to do anything really because of the criminal case. So we are really starting from the beginning. And that conference that we discussed, or that Yana shared with you, is right now Tuesday, June 17. And that is a conference where we will go and meet with the judge, and judge will give us what we call cutoff dates where we have to have various types of things done. We'll have to have a witness list and list every single person we may call at the time of trial, as will the defense. We will have to take certain depositions. We call that discovery. We have that in civil law, not so much in criminal law. So we're literally just beginning. And that whole thing has occurred because of what's called, to me, it's governmental immunity, called sovereign immunity. They get these automatic right of appeals simply by bringing a motion to throw the case out of court from the beginning. And so, Chris, if you can talk about that for 1 second, our path, but I also want the number one question is going to be, and it's a great question, is what does the fact that there was a prosecution, now there won't be another one, how will that legally impact our case?
So it should have zero effect on our case, frankly. There are different standards that apply in the criminal court and in the civil arena. And frankly, we have to prove a different set of circumstances under a different standard than what Prosecutor Becker had to prove in the criminal case. Thus far, as Ven and Ayanna have both spoken to, we haven't had an opportunity to offer those proofs to the court. The very first thing that you do when you commence a lawsuit is you file a complaint. And in this instance, Officer Schurr, instead of filing an answer to that complaint, he immediately filed a motion to dismiss our case. Judge Maloney denied that motion, but then Officer Schurr took his case to the United States Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals. Ordinarily, if you're a private defendant, a private actor, you don't have a right to do that. You have to wait until the entire case is done until you can appeal. But because of his status as a police officer at the time of these events, Officer Schurr was entitled to go to the United States Court of Appeals. And while he was there, his argument was essentially that all you have to do is look at the video. And if you look at the video, you can tell that this shooting was justified. That is obviously a very different interpretation and frankly, a stunning interpretation of what we can all see when we watch that video, where Patrick is pinned down to the ground and he's shot in the back of the head while he's unarmed. Now, one thing that I will say about the civil trial the criminal trial that I think is relevant is the criminal trial was one of the first opportunities we had to hear from Christopher Schurr regarding what happened that day. And if people go back and they watch that testimony, which is all available online, he confirmed that Patrick never threatened him. Patrick never struck him. Patrick never did anything to put him in fear, and that at all times, Patrick was trying to get away. He was simply trying to run. And that's what we see when we watch the video as well. And we have for the last over 3 years now. After the United States Court of Appeals rejected that argument and said, no, this case has to proceed back to the district court where it can then go to trial. Schurr took the extraordinary and rare step of trying to take this case to the United States Supreme Court. So he filed a petition in the United States Supreme Court asking them to step in and say that he was entitled to qualified immunity. And fortunately, that court rejected that request and said, no, it does need to return to the district court as we already determined. And so now we'll be engaged we'll have the first opportunity to be able to present our proofs, to be able to depose Officer Schurr, who now no longer has a claim. Sometimes you run into claims where people can plead the Fifth Amendment in a civil case because they can say, I could have the possibility of civil charges or criminal charges hovering over me, and I don't want to testify. He can't do that now because the criminal case is done. And so we're going to have an opportunity to depose him and to once again put on the record why it was that he felt it was necessary to take an unarmed, non-dangerous, non-threatening individual's life that day.
So let's finish this up before I open up for questions about something that the media, no offense to y'all, rarely ever do we read or hear about. Thank God for the United States civil justice system. In this area of law, you all know I've been doing this for over 39 years. There is no other area of law where from the second you start a case, where you are met with not just, I'll call it folks that are against some of the things that you do, but where you are subjecting yourself, and I'm talking about every single person that you're looking at and hearing from, ridicule, threats, and just disgusting comments all over social media, and I'll call it direct threats to every single person that stands up for civil rights of another person. And as I've told you, in my years of practice in this area, I'll bet you there's less than 1% of the cases that I've handled, and I've handled the biggest of the big, I'm very blessed, where there were ever criminal charges brought. So again, kudos that there were criminal charges brought. But when you see that there will be no criminal law justice had, it ends up in essence being the same. So, but for the civil jurisprudence system and our civil case, this family would receive no justice whatsoever. And so what I can assure you is these events, as disturbing as they are to our clients, they will not only deter co-counsel Ben Crump and his firm and my firm, these fine lawyers to my left and right, but it will only strengthen our resolve to do the thing that we do every single day, and that's to fight for these folks and fight for justice for Patrick Lyoya and once and for all, so that the world can see what really happened that day, and not from a perspective of just a police officer, but as a person, someone who had civil rights even though he was in the midst of being arrested. His civil rights never went away. And that's something that America, I can tell you, especially white America, does not understand. Simply because you're trying to get away, you do not lose all of your civil rights. They remain in full force and effect. So to suggest and think that all Patrick had to do was comply and pretend in the United States in this day and age that as a black man being arrested, that nothing bad was going to happen to him, you have the video evidence to the contrary. So, Alex, I'll open it up to questions if you don't mind, sir.
Thank you, Ben. Sam Landstra, Fox 17, Grand Rapids. During last week's press conference, Kent County Prosecutor Chris Becker said he put forward the best possible case he could. Do the Lyoyas believe him?
The Lyoyas are obviously not lawyers, so it doesn't feel like it was the best of the best, because if it was the best of the best, it would have been, in their mind, because it's their son, and I get it, it would have been a guilty verdict. But are they being critical of what Chris Becker did? No, quite the contrary. They have publicly thanked Mr. Becker repeatedly, hence I have done the same thing today. So no, the Loyolas are not being critical of Chris Becker. Thank you. Next question.
Another question from Sam. Prior to his announcement last week, did Chris Becker speak with the family and ask them for their opinion on a potential retrial?
The family is not in a position, through their own choice, to talk about private conversations they had with Mr. Becker. But to Mr. Becker's credit, yes, before his press conference, he made himself available to the family. But what the actual conversation was, we will not be publicly commenting on.
And from Duncan McLean with Wood TV, Grand Rapids. For the Lyoya family, when you hear it could be 2.5 years before the civil case is resolved, what emotions does that bring? How do you feel about another long legal battle after this decision?
Let's go, Peter first.
Okay, anauliza se kama kutokana na yeye yuko nasikia sei tena kama hata 2 ans et demi juu ile kesi civile baisikilize ubie mupate judgment, unajisikia inaleta nini mafikirio?
Mimi kwa ile ya civil case sina ya mingi ya kuongelea.
For me, for this civil case, I don't have a lot to say.
Hii kamati muda yoyote yenyewe wanataka, sina hata ile nguvu ya kusemea nje. Yenye nilikuwa nayo nguvu ya kusemea ni ile yenye walienda kujiamulia wenyewe, lakini ingine siwezi nikasemea hayo.
It can take long as you want. I don't have a lot to say about it. What I really wanted to say is what I was fighting for. It was about the justice for my son. That was my biggest concern. That was my biggest priority. But since I did not get the justice that I deserve, because they make the decision, I can't say a lot about the civil case.
Thank you. Next question, please.
Question from Autumn Picture with CBS 3 Kalamazoo. Ben, have you been in touch with the Attorney General's office on if she will file charges?
No.
Another question from Sam Landistra, Fox 17. For the Lyoya family, during the trial, how did it feel to hear the Grand Rapids police officers saying Christopher Schurr acted according to his police training?
Let's go, Mama.
Okay. Wanasema aenjo mulisikia, hii ni swali wanauliza panda ile processus ya procès, Grand Rapids Police ilikuwa nasema se kama Schurr yeye aliagir en fonction ya training yake gisi walimuforme, njo maana alikuwa obligé kumpiga Patrick masasi. Aenjo lisikia sababu alikuwa wanasema ile mabitu ya vita.
Yani nimesikia navunjika moyo zaidi na zaidi, yani nilisikia machungu tena, yani kama vile hiyo, yani kwa vile naona gisi hiyo si kwenye Patrick walio.
I felt hurt. It was so deep, and it reminded me the same first time when Patrick was killed. That's how my heart was. I mean, I was so in pain to hear that the police saying that it was justifiable to shoot Patrick in the back of the head. I mean, I cannot express it. That is the pain that I was feeling like the first day when I received the news.
Let me also comment on that. In our civil case, there will be directly contradictory testimony that we will prove by legal experts from across the United States with over 40, between the two of them, over 80 years of experience from two different experts that will say there is absolutely zero any comment in the policies and procedures of Grand Rapids Police Department that justify shooting somebody in the back of the head, period, let alone under this circumstance. So that testimony we will prove is directly contrary and wrong. So that will be our pleasure to do that, since that's a ridiculous statement. The City of Grand Rapids Police Department is backing up their own employee, who you will remember was never terminated. Let me repeat, was never terminated despite the fact that the county prosecutor charged him with second-degree murder. Only at that time was he allowed to retire with full benefits. So the city, who will ultimately pay any award in a civil case, is the same city that employs those officers.
Question, Duncan McLean, Wood TV, Grand Rapids. How does the dismissal of charges against Brian Keeley in the Samuel Sterling case and the results of other similar cases in recent years affect the feelings about the Schurr civil case? Does this bring an increased sense of urgency for this civil case? And when can we expect to hear more about the Keeley case?
You will be hearing from us on the Keeley case next week. We will obviously share public comment at that time, so I don't want to address that today. But I will say, when I started this press conference with, there is a direct attack on civil rights and civil liberties by our current administration and laws. That is part of a very disturbing trend, that now that we're actually charging police when they do wrong and it kills folks, then these charges are not going through. There are things happening in these cases like in no other type of case ever. When's the last time you all heard where there was a murder trial pending and the judge threw the case out before trial? And the answer is, although I'm sure it's possible, it happens so rarely. But when it comes to the police, it's different. So it is a disturbing trend, to say the least, and you'll be hearing more about that next week.
Does Patrick family, do they think there would be any different outcome if there was a retrial of the case, if the prosecutor decided to go ahead and hold another trial of Officer Schurr?
Peter?
Okay. Anauliza se kama famii unajisikia kama banasema selo banzibilie procès. Banatafuta ingine procès. Eske tutenapata judgment pour procès ingine bakisema se bananzibilie, unafikiria?
Ndio, na wakati Becker alitembelea nyumbani kuniuliza desizio yangu na gisi najisikia, nilimwambia tunapasha kuretry, tuendelee mpaka tufike mwisho ya hiyo kesi.
Yes, I believe that if we have to retrial it, we can get a judgment. Even when the prosecutor Becker came to see me, he just asked me, "Do you think we can retrial this case?" And I say, yes, we can retrial it.
Let's not talk about this, please. Do not. I don't want to make public comment on that, on the private discussion. Sorry. Thank you.
So that's what he say. I mean, he believes 100% that we can get the justice.
Peter believes that, correct.
Peter believes that.
I'd like to last call for questions for those on Zoom and in the room. Ven, knowing the prosecutor and police work closely together, do you believe there was a lack of political will to retry this case?
Ooh, that's a great question. I saw Chris Becker. I spoke to Chris Becker. I watched Chris Becker. I thought he did an absolutely fine job in trial. So I'm not going to say there was a political lack of will. I think that's a strong statement. Do I think that there were folks pressuring him not to? Of course. Do I think that? No, I know that. Of course they were. And there's an inherent pressure there. Most prosecutors, as I said, don't want to try a case against the police. And I get that. But I'm not going to say that that played into Chris Becker's mind. I can't read my own mind half the time. I'm not going to pretend to read his. Okay, more than half the time.
That's it for questions, Ven. I'd like to open it up for final comments.
Okay. Big picture, folks. The family is crushed. You all knew that probably coming in. That's to be expected. And like I said, from the civil lawyer standpoint, and I'm speaking on behalf of my co-counsel, Ben Crump, and his firm, our firm, this has only strengthened our will to bring these folks justice, and that's what we're going to do to the best of our ability. And we will be sharing with you throughout this case, unlike many other cases where you all don't know what happens in depositions and so forth. This is something that we will periodically be sharing publicly, because the public needs to know what really happened here, and we will be happy to share that. So unless there's anything else, we appreciate everyone's time. What's that? Of course, Commissioner, go ahead.
I'm Kent County Commissioner Robert S. Womack, and when it comes to some of the leading voices from the African-American community in Grand Rapids, I am the only one that sat through the entire jury and the trial. And I'd like to say that Chris Becker went hard. I was satisfied with his work within the court case. Like the Lyoya family, I wish he would have retried, but I do want to give him credit that he did charge the police. He took the case himself. And if anyone had been in there, they would agree with Vin Johnson that he did not shirk his duties in that courtroom. And after all he's going through, for me to know that his life was personally threatened, death threats came to him. He became one of the most slammed persons on social media. I would be amiss not to give him credit for trying that case. And I've seen him try other cases, because I've been an advocate for people in that justice system even before I became a commissioner. And I had to smile to say he's going as hard at this police officer as he's going at some of my constituents in that community, people that live in that community that have been on trial.
I'd like to thank everyone for joining today's press conference. We will be sending a full recording of the press conference that will come from Chelsea Heckathorn of Near Perfect Media. Interview requests can be sent to Chelsea at nearperfectmedia.com, and as in Nancy, nearperfectmedia.com. Thank you to our panelists.
Thank you, folks.